Hello everyone, I hope you enjoy watching this video. After so many months apart, James has finally completed his demanding work in Cambodia. During those days in a foreign land, no matter how packed his schedule was, his heart was always heavy with longing for Diep. Each morning, when the faint sunlight streamed through the hotel window, he would think of her gentle face. At night, when everyone else was fast asleep, James would quietly unlock his phone, scroll through her photos, and silently count down the days until he could return. Meanwhile, Diep had no idea about James's surprise plan to come home. Her days flowed by peacefully, seemingly unchanged. Early in the morning, she woke up in her small familiar room, soft sunlight seeping through the window, brushing her slightly tired face. She brewed a cup of hot coffee, leaned against the table, and quietly skimmed through the morning news. Sometimes, her eyes would linger on her phone, as though waiting for a message or a call from James. Then, with a faint smile, she would reassure herself that he must be very busy. On her way to work, Diep stopped by her usual coffee shop for a latte to start the day. The barista, already familiar with her, always greeted her with a smile. Yet, that smile could never fill the emptiness James had left behind. As she walked along the tree-lined streets, memories of strolling hand in hand with James resurfaced, their laughter, simple yet warm, now only echoes of the past. At the office, she was quickly pulled into the whirlwind of work, back-to-back meetings, reports that needed revising, emails that demanded replies. They consumed her time so completely that she often skipped a proper lunch, only managing a few hurried bites from her lunchbox while her eyes remained glued to the screen. Sometimes colleagues teased her as being stone-hearted, but none of them knew that inside her was a whole sky filled with waiting and longing. By evening, as the city lit up and people hurried home after a long day, Diep too returned to her small apartment. Each night, she would sit by the window, letting the glow of the skyscrapers spill in, her heart aching with thoughts of James. Sometimes, she would rest her head on a pillow, whisper his name into the silence, and then laugh at herself for being so foolish. She had no idea that, at that very moment, James had already set foot at the airport, his heart pounding with excitement. Pulling his suitcase swiftly, he could hardly wait to escape the bustling crowd and begin his surprise journey back to her. Just the thought of Diep's wide, astonished eyes when she saw him was enough to keep a smile on his lips. While Diep remained absorbed in her steady routine, unfinished reports, endless work calls, James was already close by, ready for their reunion. His heart blazed with the desire to see her again, while Diep, unaware, carried on, not knowing her life was about to be illuminated by an unexpected joy. He remembered every word, every laugh of hers. On nights when work was too stressful, just hearing her voice over the phone seemed to wash away all his weariness. But calls could never replace a real embrace, could never replace the comfort of sitting side by side on a quiet afternoon. That was what made James yearn to return more than ever. When everything was finally in order, James did not waste another second. He booked his flight back to Vietnam, his heart racing like that of a young man in love for the first time. On the plane, every passing moment felt like an eternity of waiting. He pictured her smile when she saw him, imagined the moment he could hold her tight to make up for all those days apart. Back in Vietnam, Diep continued her quiet waiting. On late afternoons, she often stood by the window, gazing into the distant sky, letting the sunset paint her longing. Each time a message from James arrived, her heart leapt with joy, but when the phone fell silent, her chest tightened with an ache that never faded. She had no idea that the day of reunion was so near. And then, that moment finally came. James stepped off the plane, overwhelmed with indescribable happiness. He breathed in deeply the familiar air of home, his heartbeat quickening at the thought of Diep. To him, this return was not only about seeing the woman he loved, but also a vow that his love for her had conquered every trial, every distance, and he would never allow such separation to happen again. Meanwhile, Diep had no idea about James's surprise plan to return. Her days went by quietly, as if nothing had changed. In the early morning, she woke up in her small familiar room, gentle sunlight slipping through the window, brushing her slightly tired face. She brewed a cup of hot coffee, leaned against the table, and quietly scrolled through the morning news. At times, her eyes lingered on her phone, as though waiting for a message or a call from James, but then she smiled faintly, reminding herself that he must be very busy. On her way to work, Diep stopped by the familiar coffee shop where she always bought a latte to start her day. The waitress, already familiar with her, always greeted her with a smile. But in Diep's heart, that smile could never fill the emptiness James had left. On the way to the office, the rows of trees along the road brought back memories of their walks together, of simple but warm laughter that now lived only in her heart. At the company, Diep was quickly swept into the whirlwind of work, endless meetings, reports to revise, emails to reply to. They consumed her entire day, sometimes even making her forget to have a proper lunch. She only managed to open her lunchbox, take a few hurried bites, while her eyes remained fixed on the computer screen. Occasionally, colleagues teased her as being stone-hearted, but they never knew that within her was a sky full of longing and anticipation. By evening, as the city lit up and the crowd hurried home after a long day, Diep also returned to her small apartment. Every night, she sat by the window, letting the lights of tall buildings spill in, her heart aching as she thought of James. Sometimes she laid her head on the pillow, whispering his name into the silence, only to laugh at herself for being so foolish. She had no idea that elsewhere, James had already landed at the airport, his heart pounding with excitement. He pulled his suitcase quickly, eager to escape the bustling crowd so he could begin his surprise journey back to her. In his mind, the image of Diep's wide, astonished eyes when she saw him kept his lips curved into a smile. While Diep continued her steady routine, unfinished reports, endless phone calls, James, not far away, was ready for their reunion. His heart blazed with the longing to see her again, while Diep remained absorbed in her daily life, unaware that her world was about to be lit up by an unexpected joy. During the months James was away, Diep patiently lived with little Nee in their small apartment. Since Nee was not yet old enough for school, she spent almost the whole day clinging to her mother. The small room was often filled with the toddler's babbling laughter, though there were also quiet moments when Diep sat at her desk with her laptop while Nee hugged her doll, playing alone. Diep's work consisted of design, editing, and online sales. Most of her time was spent at the small wooden desk in the corner, eyes fixed on the screen, fingers typing quickly. Beside her, Nee sometimes tugged at her hand, asking to play or to hear a story. Each time, Diep would look up, smile gently, smooth her daughter's hair, and coax her. "Just a little longer, then we'll cook together." Nee's eyes lit up as she chirped. "Cook. Cook. I'll help you, Mommy." That afternoon, after finishing a few orders for her clients, Diep closed her laptop and sighed in relief. She rolled up her sleeves and began tidying the house. Little Nee toddled after her, her tiny hands trying to help gather toys into the basket. Sometimes she played tricks, hiding a stuffed animal behind her back and giggling, making Diep laugh along too. Once the house was neat, the two of them went into the kitchen. Diep washed vegetables and sliced meat. Nee stood on a low wooden stool, clumsily rinsing potatoes under the tap. Water splashed everywhere, soaking her shirt. Diep dried her off and pretended to scold. "Sweetheart, if you want to help Mommy, you have to really help, not make more mess." Nee pouted, her round eyes sparkling as she nodded seriously. "I'm good. When Daddy James comes back, I'll cook for him too." Hearing James's name, Diep's heart tightened. She knelt down, stroked her daughter's hair, and smiled softly, though her eyes grew a little red. "Yes, Daddy will be so happy. He always misses us." In the little kitchen, the aroma of food spread. The mother and daughter laughed together, the clinking of bowls and chopsticks mixing with Nee's cheerful voice. For Diep, those moments were her greatest comfort during the long lonely days. Yet deep in her heart, she longed for James to be right there with them, helping set the table, listening to Nee's chatter, sharing their small but warm life. She didn't know that at that very moment, James had already landed. Walking quickly through the crowded airport, his heart surged with one desire: to return to Diep and little Nee, and to finally fill the empty space with the warmth of a family's embrace. James stepped out of the airport and took a deep breath of the familiar air of his homeland. It had been so long since he last savored the scent of the earth, the gentle breeze of home, so different from the sweltering heat of Cambodia. His heart raced, beating fast with both excitement and nervousness, as if it wanted to rush straight to Diep and little Nee. But he paused, reminding himself not to be hasty. After so many months apart, James didn't want to appear before the two of them with a weary face and empty hands. He wanted this return to be truly special, something that would bring them smiles, joy, and the warmth of a happy surprise. He called a taxi straight into the city center, stopping first at a large toy store. His eyes lit up as he saw shelves filled with dolls, stuffed animals, building blocks, and crayons. He remembered those video calls home, when little Nee would always hug her tiny teddy bear and proudly show it to him. That image had etched itself deeply in his mind, making him smile unconsciously. After wandering around the aisles, James chose a large, soft teddy bear, warm and huggable in his arms. He also picked up a box of colorful crayons and a sketch pad so that Nee could freely create. In his mind, he already pictured her clutching the gift, her wide eyes sparkling, her voice ringing out, "Daddy, I love it." And just the thought of it made all his exhaustion melt away. After paying, James strolled for a while longer before stopping at a small jewelry shop with delicate pieces displayed in the glass cases. He stepped inside, his gaze falling on a simple silver necklace with a tiny heart pendant engraved with fine patterns. Not too fancy, not too lavish, yet exuding elegance and warmth, just like Diep herself. Holding it in his hand, James felt a wave of emotion wash over him. He knew that for Diep, true value didn't lie in material things, but in meaning and love. He wanted this necklace to be a token, a whisper that his love for her had never changed, still strong despite the distance. Before leaving the shop, James stopped in the restroom, standing in front of the mirror for a long while. He studied his face, a little thinner after months of hard work abroad, but his eyes still shone with determination. He smoothed down his messy hair from the long flight, straightened his shirt collar, and buttoned the top button. Taking out his familiar bottle of cologne, he sprayed a light mist, masking the lingering weariness. Looking at himself in the mirror, James smiled, "This is enough. Diep deserves to see the best version of me." Stepping out of the store, James carried 2 small gift bags, one for Diep, one for Nee. He gripped the handles tightly, feeling his heart pound like a young man going on his very first date. Evening was falling, the streets bustling with hurried footsteps, but to James, everything blurred into the background. All he could think about was this: in just a few more minutes, he would be standing in front of that cozy little apartment where Diep and Nee were waiting, though they had no idea yet. A reunion, a joy, a new chapter of love was about to begin. As the late afternoon sun bathed the small courtyard in golden light, Diep spread out a bamboo mat, leaning back in an old wicker chair with a book in her hands. Beside her, little Nee hugged a stuffed toy, playing mischievously. Every so often, the child looked up with innocent questions, making Diep chuckle softly. The simple scene filled the courtyard with warmth, though deep in her heart, waves of longing for James still rose endlessly. From afar came the sound of footsteps echoing down the alley. At first, Diep barely noticed, thinking it must be a neighbor passing by. But then, the gate creaked open. Slow, familiar footsteps approached. In the man's hands was a bouquet of red roses, and his face, the face etched forever in her heart, was smiling at her. James stood at the entrance, bathed in the glow of the sunset, making the moment feel both real and dreamlike. His voice trembled as he softly called, "Diep." The book slipped from Diep's hands onto the mat. She jumped to her feet, her eyes wide with shock, unable to believe what she saw. Little Nee squealed with delight, dropping her stuffed toy and running straight toward him. "Daddy James! Daddy James is back!" The little girl clung tightly to James's legs, and he bent down to scoop her into his arms. Holding her close, his eyes glistened with tears, but his gaze never left Diep. He stepped closer, offering her the bouquet, his voice shaking, heavy with all the bottled-up longing. "I'm home, Diep. I've missed you both so much." Diep froze for a moment, then hot tears streamed down her cheeks. She rushed forward, her arms trembling as she wrapped them around him. In that instant, the small courtyard seemed to light up. All the months of distance, all the waiting, burst into a reunion, into a happiness beyond words. The moment James drew closer and wrapped Diep and little Nee in his arms, the whole world seemed to pause. The evening breeze whispered gently through the trees, while the radiant sunset painted the small courtyard in golden light. Diep buried her face against James's chest, hot tears streaming down her cheeks, tears of both sorrow and happiness. All the longing, the waiting, the worries melted away in the strength of his embrace. James held her tighter, whispering softly into her ear, "I'm sorry for making you wait so long. But from now on, I will never let you and our daughter be alone again." Overwhelmed, Diep could only nod, her heart pounding as if it would burst, aching from all the days apart, yet overflowing with joy now that reunion had finally come. Nestled in James's arms, little Nee chattered excitedly, "Daddy, I can fold my clothes now. And I help Mommy cook too." Her innocent voice rang like a pure melody, making the moment even more perfect. James laughed, kissed the top of her head, but his eyes never left Diep, eyes filled with boundless love. The courtyard grew darker, yet it seemed to glow with a different light, the soft radiance of happiness. James placed the bouquet of roses in Diep's hands and whispered, "These flowers aren't as beautiful as you, but I hope every time you see them, you'll remember that I'm always here." Through her tears, Diep smiled and looked up at him, her eyes shimmering under the twilight. No words were needed, they simply leaned into each other, their heartbeats uniting as one. It was a moment when the world stood still, only three souls, one love, and a home brimming with happiness. After their embrace in the courtyard, James entered the home with Diep and little Nee. The small apartment, once so familiar, suddenly felt different, lit up by laughter and the joy of reunion. Nee ran around happily, showing her father her tiny study corner with neatly arranged crayons, then proudly lifting up her dolls and teddy bears. James watched, laughing and nodding, cherishing every word, every detail. To him, everything was beautiful, from the simple toys, to his daughter's little hands, and most of all, the gentle figure of Diep, the woman he loved most. Meanwhile, Diep quickly set the table. The dinner was simple, green vegetable soup, caramelized pork, and crispy fried fish, but under the warm glow of the light, it all felt incredibly cozy. James sat down, his chopsticks trembling slightly from emotion. After so many months, he was finally tasting the food cooked by Diep and Nee again. He took a bite slowly, gazed at her, then smiled tenderly. "Delicious, just like the very first time you cooked for me." Blushing, Diep lowered her head to hide the sparkle in her eyes. Nee giggled, poking her father playfully. "Daddy, eat a lot, okay? Mommy and I made it for you." The three of them burst into laughter. The cheerful sound filled the small kitchen, chasing away all the emptiness of the long months apart. That evening meal stretched longer than usual. James couldn't stop asking questions, about Diep, about their daughter, listening intently to every little detail that now felt priceless. Diep spoke of her days working online while caring for Nee. She even shared the times when the child had fevers and she struggled alone, worried and exhausted but resilient. James listened in silence, his hand tightening around hers under the table as if to send an unspoken apology. He knew she had carried all the burdens in his absence. After dinner, Diep cleared the dishes while James held Nee in his arms, gently singing an old lullaby. His deep, slightly trembling voice soon lulled the child to sleep. She rested her head on his shoulder, a sweet smile on her lips, her tiny face serene and peaceful. From the kitchen doorway, Diep watched with her heart melting. This was the image she had dreamed of through countless lonely nights. When Nee had fallen soundly asleep, James carefully laid her in bed, tucked her blanket, and kissed her forehead. Turning back, he caught Diep's gaze upon him. Without a word, he took her hand and led her to the balcony. The night sky sparkled with stars, the crescent moon hung high, and the breeze carried the scent of flowers from the small pots Diep had planted. Standing behind her, James wrapped his arms tightly around her and whispered, "I had to go far away to realize, nowhere feels like here, where you and our daughter are. Thank you, for waiting for me." Diep rested her head on his shoulder, tears glistening in her eyes but a soft smile on her lips. Her heart trembled, yet felt deeply at peace. All the struggles, the lonely nights, the longing, all of it faded away in the strength of his embrace. James gently turned her to face him. The balcony light cast a tender glow over their faces, intimate and romantic. He lifted her hand, pressed a gentle kiss on it, and looked into her eyes. "From now on, I will never let you be alone again." And in that moment, the world stood still. Two hearts beating as one, a love that had survived every storm, and a home overflowing with happiness. Morning sunlight filtered gently through the window, softly illuminating the small room. Birds chirped merrily outside, welcoming a brand new day. Diep stirred, feeling the warm embrace wrapped around her from behind. She opened her eyes and saw James's face right beside her, his hair slightly messy, his breathing steady, and the corners of his lips curved upward as if smiling in a dream. A tender happiness spread through her heart. Beside them, little Nee had also woken up. No longer lying still, she crawled over and hugged her father tightly. Her wide, sparkling eyes lit up with joy when she realized James was truly there, not disappearing like in the video calls before. She squealed with excitement. "Daddy James. You really slept with me. Not just in the phone anymore." Her delighted cry startled James awake. He opened his eyes, and seeing both Diep and Nee at once made his heart nearly burst again. Wrapping them both in his arms, his voice husky from sleep but full of emotion, he whispered, "That's right, Daddy's home now. From today, I'll always be here with you both." The little room filled with laughter. Nee hopped off the bed, toddled away to fetch her teddy bear, and ran back to proudly show it to her father. She babbled endlessly, about how she helped her mom tidy up toys, about how she ate well so mommy wouldn't be sad. James listened intently, his gentle eyes never leaving her, his large hand stroking her soft hair, a happy smile constantly on his lips. Standing nearby, Diep watched father and daughter cling to each other, her heart overflowing. She stepped into the kitchen to prepare a simple breakfast, toast, fried eggs, and a warm bottle of milk for Nee. James quickly followed, insisting on helping, while Nee sat at the table, clapping and singing a cheerful children's song. The little home, filled with laughter, seemed to glow with warmth. When the three of them sat together around the breakfast table, James glanced at Diep. His gaze overflowed with love, silently promising a new journey filled with happiness. Diep smiled back, her hand reaching for his beneath the table. Sitting between them, Ni chattered away, her laughter and words turning that morning into a memory that would never fade from her parents' hearts. It was a truly peaceful morning, peace after the storms, the peace of a home that had just been made whole again. And all three, James, Diep, and Ni, knew that from this day forward, happiness would no longer be kept apart.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì kênh của mình tiếp tục đưa đến mọi người những video hay và ý nghĩa. Mình hy vọng rằng video này có thể nhận được nhiều sự ủng hộ của mọi người hơn. Nếu như mọi người yêu quý kênh mình cũng như là yêu quý các nhân vật thì mọi người hãy nhớ like video, sau đó là có thể thả tim hoặc để lại bình luận để góp ý cho video. Và nếu như mà mọi người yêu quý kênh mình thì cũng có thể chia sẻ video này đến những người khác để mọi người cũng có thể xem được video hay và ý nghĩa này nhé. Và đừng quên ấn like, sau đó ấn đăng ký kênh để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào mọi người nhé. Mọi người ơi, nếu như mà mọi người có ý kiến đóng góp gì để kênh mình ngày càng hoàn thiện hơn và hoàn hảo hơn để có thể đem lại những video hay và ý nghĩa hơn thì mọi người cũng có thể để lại ở phần bình luận cho mình. Ngoài ra thì mọi người cũng có thể để lại bình luận để chúc phúc cũng như góp ý cho các nhân vật nha. Cảm ơn mọi người rất nhiều. Bye bye.